Hey everyone, this is the video presentation for the EXS-290 Summer 2017 class. The Professor Kyle Crathers has asked us to talk a little bit about our research paper and kind of just left it open to how we feel about we did it, or how we feel that we did. So I'm just going to kind of hit a few quick points. So starting with the hypothesis, my hypothesis was that active recovery will theoretically help with delayed onset muscle soreness better than passive recovery. After research, I kind of realized that this was a little too broad of a topic, and I probably should have tried to narrow it down a little bit more. So I think a good point to look at would be something between my topic that I just labeled and something like the scientific journals titles, which were, active recovery versus passive recovery, with delayed onset muscle soreness, lactic acid, with the review on athletic males between this and that age. Something like that was a little too specific. So somewhere in between there seemed to be like a pretty good point to go with. So the introduction, I split it into 4 paragraphs. My first paragraph, I talked about just resistance training, kind of gave like a platform to everyone to let them know like what resistance training is, so anyone reading my paper would know, okay, this is resistance training, this is what he's basing it off of. The second paragraph talked all about DOMs and the delayed onset muscle soreness and what they are, why they occur and how they're seen by the body. The third paragraph was passive recovery, which is kind of just, the body, what we all do, when the body hurts, we just kind of sit and wait for it to feel better. And then active recovery, I went over that a little bit. And one of the things I did realize was that, in the introduction is probably where I should have been more detailed with the active recovery. I tried to put it into the discussion section with the details, but I realized the discussion section was more just for the more of the like the research aspects of it and the research part, and the introduction really is where the detail should have been, and then discussion would be backing it up. My discussion, I did a short section called Gathering the Data. That section talked about just what I looked at within the research paper and like 3 points I was looking for. So basically I was looking for like how they measured DOMs, how they achieved DOMs, and the time frame at which they were really measuring from, because you can measure, if they weren't measuring after 24 hours post-exercise, and it wasn't considered DOMs, so it had to be that 24 to 72 hour window. I did throw in a little bit of the acute muscle soreness just to kind of keep a nice well-rounded paper in there, but really I was looking for like that 24 to 72 hour window. At the end of it, I did a little compare and contrast section on all 5 articles that I put into my paper. I did realize that the articles were actually a lot harder to compare and contrast than I originally thought they would be. I think one of my downfalls was that since I'm in the gym so much, I thought, being a gym member, that I would know a lot more about this stuff and it would be easy to compare and contrast it. But I realized after reading about 20 to 25 research papers that it's a lot harder to compare and contrast the papers. So that was something that I need to definitely work on for my next paper. And then after that was the discussion section, or not the discussion section, the conclusion. And so the conclusion just kind of went over, everything that happened. It just kind of gathered all the data, and then I talked about whether or not my hypothesis was correct. The data did say that active recovery was a difference, but not a significant difference. And since it was not a significant difference, that would have made that my hypothesis would have been wrong, and that active recovery does not actually improve your DOMs over passive recovery. It does. I still believe it does, but not significantly enough for it to be something that they're going to really look into anytime soon. So that's where kind of more research articles can come from that as well. I think the next section was further research. So basically anywhere where I felt like there was a gap in research, I kind of thought about putting that into the further research. Like some of the articles talked specifically about measuring for DOMs at the 24, 48, and 72 hour mark, but there was no measurements in between the 24, 48 to 72s. So I figured, some research could be taking into account maybe a measurement every 2 to 3 hours between the 24 to 48 hours. That way you can really kind of get that, that bell curve of showing the pain go up and then back down. So that was one thing. Another thing could be, really just kind of comparing, like actually comparing the different types of active recovery, because a lot of the research I read was just taking one active recovery and comparing it to a passive recovery method. And so that was another part that I could have added into the research paper. All in all, I felt like it turned out to be a pretty good paper. I got a 467 out of 500 points, so that was about a 93%, I think I calculated. So it worked out. I did like how Kyle split the intro had its own specific due date, and then the discussion had its own specific due date, then the final draft, and so on. I did like that. It kind of kept me on top of the game. It really helped me to prioritize things and get things done better. And I feel like if I didn't do that, I may have been trying to rush things at the end. And with this research paper, you really can't rush things. So that's kind of how my paper went, and that's what I learned with it. Hope this helps.